So it is now a week that will see the tectonic plates in British politics shift. The reform quake is coming. But the battle to win the support of the British right, well, I think it's actually only just begun. So as you'd expect, expectation management now in full force. Reform UK's favoured journalist Isabel Oakeshott posted on X, Runcorn and Halsby reality check. It's one of Labour's safest seats. Yes, Reform is on a roll, but Labour is working very hard, all to play for. But for Nigel Farage, there would be no shame in not winning this one. And my party sources tell me there is concern that the Rupert Lowe situation has softened Reform's base support. And there's particular worry over this moment. I don't know if you saw it over the weekend. It was from the Daily Telegraph, but it went viral. Watch.
Originally preparing to vote for Reform. I am now unsure. I was so hopeful, and quite honestly, I think the trust has been broken there with that internal squabble with Richard Lowe. People find it really hard to trust anyone at the moment, whether that is government, whether that is any politician, whether that's media. Unfortunately, there are just too many lies that have been told.
What's an example of a lie that you feel politicians have
How long have
covered
you
up?
got?
Just one thing recently.
Okay, let's talk about the rape gangs. Why is that not being investigated?
We were talking to a woman earlier who was saying that she really liked what Reform was saying until the fiasco with Rupert Lowe. A man who has raised £600,000 more for an inquiry into grooming gangs, why is there not space for somebody in Reform who has put the words into action?
Look, I've been brought in as the candidate here in this by-election. I'm interested in these local issues. What's gone before me is I haven't been party to that. So all I'm interested in is focusing on this election. In terms of what goes on centrally, then that's not of interest to me at the moment.
And so you can see the Rupert Lowe situation, the fact that he was reported to the police, has hung over this entire local election campaign. And Nigel, I think quite rightly, and probably as a result of the pressure, has toughened up his policy. So he posted over the weekend, Reform UK's policy team has drafted a comprehensive strategy for the deportation of illegal migrants. We will operate a zero-tolerance policy for those that enter our country illegally. So he's sort of wanting to describe himself as the deporter in chief. But Rupert Lowe, well, he lingers over the party, I would say, like its conscience, like its moral compass, no matter how much that might infuriate its chairman, Zia Yusuf. So when Reform then posted, as Prime Minister, Nigel Farage will ensure the deportation of all illegal immigrants in this country within 5 years. It's time for action, not words. Rupert replied, let's listen to the man himself. Then quoting Farage saying, we simply can't do it. It's impossible to do. He then went further, adding, it's again wordplay. You'll only deport, quote, those that enter. Weak. The British people want every single illegal migrant already here deported, not just those arriving. Stop being scared of being called a racist and finally call for mass deportations. Now, that actually resulted in Reform blocking Rupert. I mean, who could have ever imagined this? He was their star MP just a few weeks ago. But they blocked him on social media, resulting in another takedown where he said both Farage and Reform have been deleting my comments on their pages, so I'll post it here for all to see before they censor it again. You can decide for yourselves if it is a reasonable criticism to make. Now, I'm actually on a different page to Rupert and Ben Habib over the voting this week. You know, it's a really personal call. I completely understand that. Although I agree with Katie Hopkins that Reform UK at this week's election is the best way to send a message. It's too early. That's the point. It's too early. But to be very clear, by the way, to all of the people who think I'm somehow turning on Reform, if I was voting in the local elections next week, I would be voting for Reform UK. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be scrutiny on where this party is going, because we don't want Tory 2.0. Didn't work first time around, and so we need something better in order to save the country. I do find it hilarious, by the way, that Reform UK and its chairman, Zia Yusuf, are treating me as the enemy given that's what I've been telling you. Anyway, this is why Ben Habib thinks that position is wrong.
Nigel Farage made his reputation on an anti-immigration platform. He's been banging the anti-immigration drum for decades. Yet, over the last few months, he has come out repeatedly against the deportation of all people who've entered this country illegally. He has said on the record repeatedly that that is too difficult a task to be undertaken. He is prepared, notwithstanding his previous anti-immigration rhetoric, to allow 1.2 million people to stay in the United Kingdom. 1.2 million people, as he would have said in the past, about whom we know nothing, who have already proven their criminality because they've entered the country illegally, who could pose a significant threat to civil society in this country. He would not deport them. Oh, he's umming and ahhing a bit about that now, but only because of the pressure brought to bear by Rupert Lowe, myself and others.
But it is unquestionable that Nigel and Reform remain in control on the right at the moment. They are dominating the conversation, even with the Tories' next leader, Robert Jenrick, who is so keen for positive PR. And by the way, I'm not slamming this. I love his energy, but you've got to be particularly keen in this case because he actually yesterday ran the London Marathon, then immediately hot-stepped to the Times radio studio.
I want the Conservative Party to be in office. I obviously want to be able to affect change, but I don't think that the route to that is by getting in some kind of pact or coalition with the Reform Party. What I want to do is to create a coalition of voters and to make the party a party which everyone in this country who is a natural Conservative can once again have confidence in. As I say, I think that's a big task, because when I speak to those people, they are very frustrated, and some of them are very angry with the Tory party right now because we did let them down. We didn't keep our promises. What we've got to do in the months ahead is demonstrate that we've learnt our lessons and that we have serious answers to those challenges, and that was what will differentiate ourselves ultimately from Reform and Nigel Farage.
I mean, huge respect to him. I actually ran the London Marathon in 2011. Yes, I did. Can you believe that? And trust me, I couldn't speak for about 24 hours afterwards. But it's interesting because the current Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, also senses weakness over Rupert Lowe. Watch.
I've been very clear that Nigel Farage wants to destroy the Conservative Party. He said so himself. This is one of the greatest institutions of our country, I firmly believe. He is not someone that I'm interested in doing business with. And he's already lost 20% of his party. Rupert Lowe himself, someone who came in wanting to make Farage Prime Minister, says that man must not be Prime Minister. So let the people who've worked with him speak for him.
Okay, so what about the man himself? Well, Rupert Lowe has today revealed he is very much planning a full-throttled assault on Farage and Reform UK by the time of the next general election. He wrote on X, and let me take you through this because it's pretty full-on stuff. He says, I have received countless questions on my recommendation for who to vote for this Thursday, and I have thought long and hard about the answer. Here is my honest assessment. For months, I pushed Reform to propose radical but credible policies, to detail it with substance and costings, write it down, produce policy documents. I was mocked and ignored. I hope that there might be some form of plan for these elections, maybe a well-thought-out policy or two, to even go as far to write a proposal not thrown together on a flashy social media graphic, but in properly constructed sentences on an actual document. None came. Nothing. Reform even blocked me on their social media challenges for quoting Farage's own words on this. A party of supposed free speech should be willing to take some mild criticism from an independent MP, surely. I tabled a motion in the Commons calling exactly for the mass deportation of all illegal migrants. Has Farage signed it? Tice? Anderson? No, none. More Conservative MPs have supported my mass deportation motion than Reform. Please listen to me when I say this. Reform's leadership does not share the opinions of the membership on so much of such importance. Perhaps most concerningly, Farage alarmingly states if we politically alienate the whole of Islam, we will lose. Think very carefully about what he is saying here. My view There needs to be an honest national debate around the influence of Islam and how it is shaping our way of life against the wishes of the vast majority. Farage does not share that opinion and pushes the same crippling cowardice that has allowed our civilization to be held hostage out of fear of offending one religion, Islam. British values need to be robustly and courageously defended, even if that results in unpleasant insults of racism and Islamophobia from establishment that will always hate us. Reform is not the answer. This is not a general election. Vote for a candidate who cares about your local community and has presented credible policies on how they can actually benefit your area. I wouldn't worry too much about the colour of the rosette this time. Do what is right for your community. It's not letting Labour in. Labour is in and will be firmly in until 2029. Nothing that happens this week will change that. At the time of these elections, I will be an independent MP. It will not remain that way forever. There will be an alternative to reform. I promise you that. So that is the Rupert Lowe bombshell today. But you know, I'm an independent journalist. I'm not a shill. I'm not an activist for any party or politician. So I do want to show you the other side. And so today, I'm going to read you a new article or part of a new article from the former UKIPper under Farage, Patrick Flynn, a respected journalist who knows what it means, by the way, to fall out with Nigel Farage. And he has come out completely against Rupert Lowe today. He said Lowe has, if anything, handled his position even worse. Elon Musk's praise and number of likes on X clearly convinced him that he could do a better job as party leader than could Nigel Farage. In fact, I was a fan of his hard-as-nails messaging on immigration policy and law and order, but for him to be waging a legal war against his party and its leader in the week of the local elections is utterly crackers. If Habib, Lowe and others on the right of reform had just played a long game, they would be on course to acquire dozens of similarly minded MPs in 2029 and have the possibility of real political traction themselves. Instead, as reform gets more people elected to senior jobs, their profile and importance will plummet very fast. The moral of the story is that it's a long game and nobody should believe their own propaganda. Okay, to analyse now, let me bring in today's superstar panel. And it is wonderful to have from the Hearts of Oak podcast the brilliant Peter McIlvenna, and making her outspoken debut, the host of Emma Kenny True Crime on YouTube, the wonderful Emma Kenny. So Peter, let me kick off with you. I just want to show you the type of response I'm getting around this on X at the moment. I'm finding it incredibly frustrating. So in response to that Rupert Lowe post today, a reform supporter called Paul copied in alongside Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib and Howard Cox, myself and Maya Tusi, both independent journalists. And he named all of us and their reform-hating lackeys genuinely, this is their words, prioritise the nation over their own egos as utterly delusional. Their toxic schemes and self-serving agendas are laid bare hourly on X, spewing divisive venom that mocks any pretense of patriotism. Wake up. Their shameless hypocrisy is a betrayal of everything this country stands for. Now, Rupert Lowe responded saying, if you're going to exalt us, at least use your own words, not some AI-generated bile. But the issue that I have, Peter, is that I'm a journalist. I'm an independent journalist. How on earth can the solution be for me to simply shill for reform? I have literally said that I agree with Katie Hopkins that this election, it is probably the best thing to vote for reform and send a real message to the establishment. But isn't it odd that reform itself seems to only want propaganda? They're not prepared to have any form of critical coverage. And I think it's actually critical coverage of Farage's terrible mass deportation stance, which has seen a total U-turn in the past week, which is something that should be celebrated.
Well, I agree. There's so many parts to this story. And of course, you as an independent journalist, Mara Tusi, Lotus Eaters, I know Lotus Eaters also have an issue because a number of Reform candidates were removed because of hope not hate, basically, working with them and removing people who said anything which was strongly pro-British, strongly concerned with mass immigration, and anyone who spoke common sense. So it doesn't make sense for Reform to attack journalists. But there are a couple of points I want to come back, because there are a number of big points that kind of this is pinned on. One, I don't get what Katie says, so I will disagree with you, Dan, from the outset. I can't vote for a monster. There's no way.
So you wouldn't be voting for Reform if you could vote in the local elections. But first, a 2024 study links caffeine to higher anxiety risk. Half of North Americans are sensitive to it, and 40 million Americans are diagnosed with anxiety. Coffee jitters fuel anxiety, yet it's the most used drug in the world. And I have to admit, I was trapped too. My thing was never coffee, actually. It was diet energy drinks. You know, that's how I got my caffeine hit. But they were evil. I would feel jittery and anxious, and then by the mid-afternoon, totally exhausted. Then I heard Andrew Huberman talking about theobromine found in chocolate, which provides a gentler, longer-lasting energy boost without the anxiety by improving blood flow, getting more oxygen and fuel to your brain and muscles. And that led me to Morning Bean by Verso, a brew with theobromine and all the good things in chocolate, along with antioxidants and electrolytes for all-day energy, hydration, and focus. Now, I have to say, I love my Morning Bean. I have it right here. And honestly, it's the taste which is amazing. Rich, chocolatey, smooth, great hot or cold. Not like other coffee alternatives, which can taste absolutely awful. It's genuinely a bit like having a McDonald's hot chocolate. It's that good. And on top of increasing energy, Morning Bean's ingredients have been shown to reduce stress, enhance mood, and balance blood sugar. Cocoa powders, drinks, and products are commonly contaminated with high levels of toxic heavy metals, but Verso conducts third-party testing on every batch to ensure they have pure, high-quality cocoa, prioritizing safety and high flavanol content. Since I started taking Morning Bean, I feel more focused with less energy crashes. I also like how it get my daily dose of superfoods from it. So if you're looking to replace your coffee or your second cup, you don't have to give it up altogether, you know. Give Morning Bean by Verso a try. Just click on the link in the description below or head on over to morning.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken. You will save 15% on your first order. Let me just repeat that address for you. morning.ver.so/outspoken, or you can just click on the link in the description box below. But now back to the show.
No, I wouldn't. And I will take what Rupert has suggested and look at all the candidates. And that's what I generally try and do. But I've always thought, well, Reform seemed to be a good candidate here, a good party, or UKIP back in the days, or before that, the Conservative Party. And traditionally, that's where I have been. But yet, even through gritted teeth, I cannot vote for a monster. And if Kitty thinks Nigel is a monster, why would you want a monster actually in number 10 just because he's slightly less of a monster?
This is what she said, Peter. Just in case people missed it, let me just play it before you come back in.
A minister for deportation and will roll back on net zero and all of that nonsense. It's good to see this shift, and well done to Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib who have pushed for this. You don't have to like the guy, you just have to choose your monsters. And right now, Nigel is the right monster to choose.
She's wrong.
I can't. If Nigel's a monster, you can't vote for him. And Nigel's only moved his position because of pressure from others. Nigel doesn't believe in this immigration or mass deportation, basically, of those who shouldn't be here. He refused to align himself with AfD in Germany or FPO in Austria or the other parties in the right. So he's tried to distance himself, saying, I'm soft and cuddly in the middle. Come out and say what you think. And the other issues are where Kemi Badenoch says Nigel wants to destroy the Tories. They've destroyed themselves. Nigel just wants to sweep them up. They've already destroyed themselves 14 years of non-conservative policy. And you mentioned, Dan, that Rupert was the star only weeks before, and now they've removed him. That was the problem, that he was a star figure. He was speaking common sense, and with Nigel, no one else can be the star but Nigel. That, I think, goes to the root of the problem in reform. And of course, Rupert on his post said, this isn't about letting in Labour, they're already in. That's absolutely true, and none of this will change anything. And even if reform do well in the local elections, it doesn't, we're 4 years out from a general election. It won't really change anything. And I would love, actually, if the Conservatives wanted to do anything, then come out and say, we're going to sort out the grooming gang issue. This has been going on for 50 years. These girls, if they want to get compensation from their perpetrators, they need to raise the money and go through the legal system once again, which I've been involved in. And if Rupert said, if reform will not do it, if Nigel will not do it, I will. And that's what I want in a politician. That's what I was, someone who does what they says they will do. And I don't see that in Nigel. I think he will do what he feels pressure to do, but not necessarily what he believes is right to do. And I think Rupert is a conviction politician, and I think Nigel is a consensus politician.
I mean, Emma Kenny, you could have a field day sitting down with Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, couldn't you? Because it's so frustrating. It's like, they could have been such a powerful team, and egos got in the way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think that was brilliant just said then is the idea of one being a consensus and one kind of being a true advocate for the ordinary person. And one of the things you also talked about was the fact that people don't like being criticised in politics. And it kind of blows your mind, because one of the things that you need to be willing to have thrown at you is criticism, not just to have that thrown at you, to hear it and then to process it, and at times to act on it. It feels like, certainly in the last 3 decades, without a shadow of a doubt, all those in politics believe that they are somehow without any criticism, and what they think and what they do is acceptable and for a greater good, even when we can see it's absolutely not the case. And this is a perfect demonstration of that. You've got individuals who genuinely could have come together and done something really transformative just for the ordinary person, because I think that particularly Rupert Lowe, he speaks about the common individual. He sees the girls I used to work with 20 years ago who were affected by the grooming gangs, who I'm still in contact with these days. And the reality is their lives were destroyed. I mean, we have people in the media who are able to formulate sentences and are able to explain the journey they went on. And thank God we do, those young women who've grown up telling that story and the parents of them doing so. I happen to work with people who don't have that capacity anymore because of what happened to them. So I agree completely with the fact that what we have right now is ego-based. And it's the same when you look at Keir Starmer, ego-based. It's not about politics. It's about probably promises for the next 10 years of his life after he leaves the Labour Party, after doing whatever he was told to do. You have people like Rupert Lowe saying, no, it's time for a change. It's time to alter the course of our history and to actually do things that are right and good and proper. So when it comes down to local elections, I can completely understand Casey's point of view, which is teach them a lesson. But if that's not actually going to do anything but reinforce that you can say one thing and do another, to some degree, that isn't a helpful reality. I would like actually for them all to be taught a lesson. And I think it's coming. And I'm patient, because I do believe the biggest principle that people have missed are the millions and millions of people from all different ethnicities, from all different belief systems, who have a common belief, which is that Britain should be safe, Britain should be essentially for the British, and that yes, we should be compassionate, but we should also be very clear. The safety of our fellow man, the wealth of our fellow man, the future of our fellow man here is the priority.
Oh, big time. Big time. And I have to be honest with you, I'm quite glad that I don't have to vote. There are no local elections where I live, because I would struggle for the reasons that you've both suggested. I want to ask you now about trust. So actually, Emma, I'll kick off with you, but we've seen this phenomenal U-turn on mass deportations from Nigel Farage, from going from saying this.
You're confusing politically. You're going left and right, attacking this way and that, aren't you?
No, it is our intention, ultimately, that if you've come illegally, you should not be able to stay.
It's a political impossibility to deport hundreds of thousands of people. We simply can't do it.
And then, in this speech last week, all of a sudden, we could do it.
It is our intention, ultimately, that if you've come illegally, you should not be able to stay. You should not be able to make a spurious claim that somehow your right to a family life means you should stay here. We will, in 3 to 4 weeks' time, announce more detailed policy on how we will actually carry out those deportations. We'll do that after the election, but I make the intention very, very clear.
So, Emma, do you trust Farage, given
No,
he previously said it was impossible?
Anybody in politics at the moment, I don't trust.
Yeah, well, that's sensible.
I've always said that politicians go where the wind blows. Where is the populist perception, or at least what does X say the populist perception is, which is always incorrect, by the way, but nonetheless, people seem to really buy into the fact that it must be the truth because it's there. No, they go where the wind blows. And, you know, I don't have any inclination or desire to be in politics, but I know what I would do if I needed to deal with deportations. It's called deportations. It's called working with the French and being much more forceful. It's called not using that particular crossing as a place where smugglers are making millions of pounds at a detriment to people who are dying on those seas, and then at a detriment to the common person in the UK, like myself, paying taxes to actually accommodate these individuals, which also causes massive division and also a real hatred towards communities, which is deeply problematic and divisive in our community. So absolutely, do I trust politicians? Not at all, because you cannot, and historically, evidentially, there is reality-based thoughts and feelings around why that's the case.
And Peter, I imagine you say absolutely not. You can't trust Farage on deportations, given he was saying they were impossible a few months ago.
No, because he changed his opinion. And I don't understand, because this seems to be a massive unforced error. Nigel could have come out and actually said, no, we're going to deport those who are here illegally. That would fit with the concerns of the public who see mass immigration changing their societies and multiculturalism destroying the UK. So to me, it would be a vote winner. That's what really confuses me on this, that Nigel could have spoken truth, connects with voters, and that would have done brilliantly, and that would have pulled the rug massively out of the Conservative Party, and yet he's flip-flopped back and forward. And I simply do not understand this. And I know from someone, I live in London, but I wasn't born in London, born in Northern Ireland. Now, if I came, I could have maybe found a little Irish community to be around and just stayed in that local area, but I wanted to experience actually, well, I did want to spirit English people. I don't get much of that in London. But I think people don't want that ghettoized society that we are seeing of many cultures. And I know Rupert has talked about concerns of Islam and that clash that we have between the freedoms that has and the freedoms we have in the West. But Nigel, again, is afraid of engaging that. And he seems to be afraid of pulling the nettles out, of engaging with the difficult topics, despite the fact that it will be a vote winner. So again, it makes you wonder why Nigel didn't walk away after he achieve Brexit in some shape or form. And I do give him huge credit for that, because he was a towering figure, and over 25 years he changed the conversation. But he is desperate not only to get into Parliament, he's achieved that, although if he can't keep 5 MPs together, I don't know how he's going to keep a party of 300-400 together. Could you imagine 400 people under Nigel? You'd lose one a week. But he is desperate for that position of number 10. And I think if he got in, he wouldn't know what to do with it. Similar to Boris. Boris got in, he didn't know what to do with that position. I think Nigel would be exactly the same. He would have focus groups telling him.
Because you need to have giants with you. And Rupert Lowe is a giant. And he could have been so incredible. But look, it's very interesting. Lots of you have been asking for this. Katie Hopkins will be here live on Outspoken tomorrow, so she can explain why Peter is wrong and she is right in terms of holding your nose and voting for Reform UK this week. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.